Hello, everyone, and welcome to my presentation, The Technological Preparedness of Public Librarians. So, without further ado, let's just jump right in. Just cue up my PowerPoint here. Alrighty. So, the inspiration behind this idea came from a multi-layered attempt, as I'm sure many of your projects has turned out to be. Originally, I wanted to do a study on reference transaction reporting, how librarians can record their reference transactions. I received some feedback early on in the semester and confirmed that there probably wasn't enough data to do a research project on this topic, but I still like the idea of a reference transaction. So I shifted gears a little bit, maintaining that aspect, and spoke to my coworkers. I work at a public library, and I decided that I could probably salvage that idea, turning it into a look at how librarians handle technologically based questions in the reference transaction. And with that data, I think schools and public libraries, or libraries of all kinds really, could make improvements to their curriculum or their training programs and reevaluate what is expected of the librarian when the librarian is given the voice to say, I find that there are this many gaps between education and the work experience, or that everything is fine. This is more of an exploratory study I found. So, in my literature review, I wanted to gather some data regarding two main pieces of information. The first was patron demographics, and in regards to that, I just want to know who were the kinds of people that are currently going to the library today. Now, in some of these studies that I've read, in particular the Opportunity for All one I have listed here, where I've taken these graphs from, the researchers discuss a stereotype that libraries are populated by older people, or that's age 65 and up, um, economically disadvantaged individuals, or individuals from minority groups, because of whatever reason they either have low information literacy and technological literacy, or no access to free or somewhat free internet providing capabilities like a computer or a smartphone. In actuality, the age demographics actually make up quite a different story, where the graph on the right shows that 14 to 24-year-olds make up 25% of the library population in the United States. The 65 and older demographics still make a sizable chunk, but it's 17%. So the kinds of questions that a reference librarian should expect to get are going to vary quite differently from someone who might be older and unaware or not sure how to use a device versus a younger person who might be more digitally and technologically literate but is struggling with particular programs or tasks such as citing a paper. The second piece of information that I wanted to gather data on was what the librarians are expected of and how are they trained, how are they prepared to work in the public library field. And for the most part, it seems as though training is mostly focused on a behavioral and performance kind of training that is modeling certain behaviors when talking to a patron and following various steps in order to make a nice transaction. And this is very important. But as far as the technological component, there's a considerably lacking amount of training. And what's more alarming is that directors often think that their librarians that they are just hiring should be able to accomplish a number of tasks, but don't really look into the training part of it. They just believe they should be able to do this because that's what's expected of them. So there's some gaps that this study could try to fill in, I think, as far as the perception of what the librarian is expected to do versus what they can actually do. My method section is broken up into three phases. I call them phases because I like to be fancy. But essentially, the population is going to vary because I think this project, this study could be done in a number of libraries, but for the sake of this assignment, I'll just keep it as my home county, Suffolk County, New York, libraries in that region. The participants would be chosen through convenience sampling because I just want librarians, regardless of if they've completed school 20 years ago or they just finished yesterday or how many years they've been working in a library. The focus of this study was just to find librarians who could report on their experiences. So, in the first phase, you have a survey. This is more of a baseline just to gather information on how the librarians perceive their abilities. I think there's a difference between someone's perception versus their actual capabilities. So, this is more of a neutral aspect of the study that will be compared to the observation period and another phase later. The idea for the survey came from a number of studies. Essentially, the main bits from it was that you wanted to keep it short. I saw in one particular study the Services to Older Adults preliminary findings from 3 Maryland public libraries. They kept their survey around 15 minutes, so I figured 1 minute per question, roughly, a thoughtful question, would be fine. So there's about 15 questions here, 15 components to the survey, and then I also end it on a open-ended aspect, just so if I missed anything, the librarians would be able to fill in the gap there. And like I said, just a baseline, just want to find out where the librarians stand. The second phase is the reference recording observation period. So this was the component, the program that I had mentioned working on when I was doing my internship at Stony Brook University. This was called a Gimlet, and it's pretty simple. You just have a couple boxes that you can fill in with various pieces of criteria. I modified it a bit to cut any information that I didn't need, like if the question was asked by a student or, the format. My plan for the observation period would be that the library would advertise a tech day where patrons would be encouraged to ask tech questions or bring in their devices, or if they wanted to learn how to use a particular program like Excel or something like that, they were encouraged to. This is something my public library does, and it gets a lot of activity, so I thought this would be a good opportunity to observe librarians in the field. And in order to get information about how successful these transactions were, I just modified the Gimlet program and have it like this as a short form. It would be pen and paper, just because I don't think every library wants to subscribe to Gimlet just for the sake of this one study. But pretty simple. You have all these boxes a librarian would tick off, as well as a notes section where they would fill in any other information that isn't covered in the previous questions. The final phase is the interview phase, and this is to provide almost a reflection moment for the librarians, where they report their baselines, and like I said, that's neutral because they could either value their abilities or overvalue their abilities. And here we're just asking questions that haven't been asked already. So just to gain some more context, because I think context is going to reveal a lot more about these librarians and how they perform. And like I said, with the sampling method, I wasn't really looking for anyone in particular of a particular background, but in this section we can put the components of the background into the question. So, we weren't looking for anyone who has worked for 15 plus years, but if someone performed very well and then we asked them how many years they performed and they said 15 plus years, then we have some context to match it all up to, and some other information as well. So the expected findings of this research proposal would be just to have the librarians have an opportunity to express how they find their training and how they find their work experience. This is a qualitative study, and I kind of view it as a exploratory study without any major hard data to be collected, but I think that giving librarians a chance to say, I think I wasn't prepared for this kind of job, or I wasn't prepared, but that's okay because my job trained me, anything ranging from that. I just want to find out how they deal with their job. Are they stressed out about it, or are they really fine with it? Are they bringing their training from other opportunities and experiences to their current job, or was it covered in school? And I think with the findings of this data and this study, schools and workplaces and directors, all of them really, can re-examine how they view and expect librarians to act and how they are tasked to perform a variety of activities. And as far as schools go, how they can modify their curriculum in order to better help patrons and also help librarians serve the patrons. So that's my study. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate all the feedback that I've been getting over the course of the semester from all you guys, and I really do look forward to hearing the rest of your guys' study. So thank you.